and welcome to what I think is the 31st episode, but this might actually be the 30th episode. I don't know. My numbers are all messed up at this point, but welcome back to Back Alley Chat, the fastest growing addiction recovery podcast in the world. I'm your host, Allie Severino, and I have a very interesting guest here today, Mr. Will Robinson, AKA Neuro Will. Will is the author of Addiction Self-Help ebook, Dopamine Dynamics, a book said to help you master the molecule of motivation and craving. Some topics we're going to cover here today, and what is covered in his text, I think we're going to cover it today, is things like optimal fitness strategies for our neurochemicals, how to accelerate the transformation of our thoughts and behaviors using tools like neuroplasticity protocols and adrenaline timing, how to guard your dopamine pool. And all of these findings that Will's going to talk about come from Stanford University, and Will has really studied these topics intensely. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about this. Of course, though, before we start, we have to thank our forever amazing sponsor, Quick Intel, okay? Now, this is a great time to get involved in crypto because everything's at an all-time low. So that's great. So when you buy it, normally it can only go up, but it could go down. I mean, don't listen to me. But if you are interested in getting involved in crypto today, you need to check out the hub of AI tools offered by Quick Intel. What that does, it allows you to be a confident crypto trader, no getting scammed or not knowing what's behind your favorite project. Invest with confidence today. With Quick Intel, you can download their app on the iOS or Android device today. And as always, show them a little bit of love because they are fantastic and they are the reason we get to bring awesome interviews like the one today to you guys. So I love you so much, Quick Intel. Thank you. And hi, Will.
Hey, Allie.
How's it going?
Going good.
Oh my gosh. So we were just talking. Will moved to the opposite side of the county, but I still thought, why did you leave beautiful Delray Beach?
The Lifetime Fitness there is amazing, and they have a cold plunge.
Do they not have that in Boca?
They don't. I think it's one of the first corporate facilities to actually implement cold exposure, which is really neat. And I always thought about how would that be possible because you're getting into the same water. Would it have to be chlorine, things of that nature? And it's funny. It's almost annoying how much people like it. It's hard to get in.
The cold plunge?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, it's always full.
Yeah, there's always people there, and you're gonna make a friend there because a lot of people are walking by like, oh, you guys are absolutely psychotic. So it's like it reminds me of politics. It divides you on one side or the other.
Because you said that the cold water is one of the best motivators of what was it? You were trying to tell me. He was like, you need to wake up early and look at the sun.
Yeah,
but he was like, do it at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was like,
Well, Stanford actually brought to the public people getting themselves off of addictive things using cold water because of the dopamine increase from the cold exposure. And I think one of the key concepts that we'll be discussing is how do you get dopamine from something that's difficult, right? McDonald's is easy. The energy drink, cracking it open is easy. The video game, now it takes a while to get skilled at video games, but it's easy to sit on the couch and turn on the controller. So a key concept here is we want to reactivate our dopamine circuitry, and the only way that we're going to do that is through positive thought, engagement, time, and something called lack of dopamine layering. So this is kind of...
Wow, this is going to be... We're going to learn a lot today.
Yeah.
So, Will, let me just, before we get started learning all this, how did you get into this? Because you have a story of your own, right? You're in recovery, correct?
Yeah.
And I know that you were going to different treatment centers, and were you finding success, or did you really find success when you learned about these tools? What was your path?
Great question. So I'm a chronic addict. It started when I was very young. And I was also a tryhard. I was what's known as Captain AA. I was preaching the big book.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was doing the IFS therapy, internal family systems. I was into all the cutting edge therapies, diets, intermittent fasting, CrossFit at 20 years old.
You were doing it.
At 20 years old, I was doing 2 hours of therapy a day.
Wow.
And I was in this pattern where I would make it a year and then relapse, make it a year and then relapse. And it was beating me up emotionally, mentally, physically. Right. I was putting in all this effort and I was seeing other people seeming to appear like they were making it. And so it was almost like I was perfectly broken in a way to where I had to like dig deeper. And there's this idea in science where like we want to increase the success rate. So it works for some people, but how do we increase that success rate so it works for more people?
Right.
So it's this interesting thing where I was so broken, I had to dig deep into neurobiology. I remember telling my mentor one day, I was like, I don't think you have the answers. Like, I'm like overdosing on fentanyl. I'm trying so hard, you know?
Oh my God. Right? And you're like, please help me.
So I told him, I'm going to go study neuroscience. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow. And were you working the steps? Like, did you ever complete your 12 steps?
Yeah.
Really?
I can't tell you. I hate the 4th step because I've done it 30 times. And for those of you that don't know, this is something that the general public can learn from as well. It's beautiful. And what I wanted to say was addicts are true unsung heroes. And this isn't just a video for addicts. Addicts actually have leverage in today's world because corporations have been learning from addicts for about 30 years now. The name of the game for business is to keep someone coming back.
Right.
And it all has to do with this dopamine circuitry. So there's often lessons to be learned from chronic conditions. So if we can dig deep into our problem, we actually find a solution for the entire general public.
Right.
Dopamine is the key to unlocking intrinsic motivation, which is the ability to motivate yourself during the friction of effort, the ability to stay on a path for your entire life. If you've ever wondered why some people give up at 30, 40, 50 years old, the midlife crisis occurs.
Right.
That is the same dopamine circuitry disorder, the work hard, play hard disorder, and it's happening 20, 30 years down the road.
So what do you mean by work hard, play hard disorder? What does that mean?
Yeah. So the person that looks highly successful, that works hard during the week, but they are just living for these experiences, whether it's the nice restaurant, they have their travel destinations planned out far in advance. It just seems like experience, work hard, experience. And what Stanford is showing is we need a little bit of serotonin sprinkled in. We need a brake pedal. This world, it's so easy to press gas pedal to get dopamine. And the autonomic nervous system is designed to go up and down, but we're constantly just on this.
Trying to go up, 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 up.
Yeah, we're constantly
more.
on that system.
Totally.
And we have a bunch of yoganistas and self-help gurus. Nothing against them.
Right.
There's no shortcuts. Yeah. It's hard to learn this stuff. You got to put a little bit of effort in, but once you once you grasp a couple key concepts, we can rock and roll.
What are the like foundational concepts to dopamine and feeling good without having to put things in your body to make you feel good?
Yeah. So it's not about becoming a saint and avoiding dopamine.
Okay.
It's about understanding a couple rules.
Okay.
And like I said, there's a brake pedal. The yoganistas will say, focus on your inner chakras and find your soul energy and mindfulness. I think my head's attached to my body. I'm not sure what mindfulness means, right?
Okay.
These vague terms. Give me something that I can apply.
Right.
So we're back to this molecule serotonin. When I say brake pedal, that means serotonin. How can we get serotonin in a world that's designed for dopamine?
And are they opposites, or what's the difference between the two? Because I know serotonin should make you happy. I hear we get it from the sun, right? Like when you lay out, I hear that increases your serotonin. I think you can even get it in a tanning bed. I'm not a scientist, though. Do you think you can get in a tanning bed? Anyway, so serotonin and dopamine.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Because they both make you happy, right?
Serotonin protects dopamine.
Okay.
Serotonin protects. Dopamine's job is to keep you on a path.
Okay.
And if there's not enough serotonin sprinkled in, so there's a non-negotiable daily protocol. It's called NSDR. It's the most effective way to get serotonin and activate this calming system.
Okay.
You'll combine it with a couple protocols. We won't get into that just now. But it's really this idea that this system is go, go, go. And if you can literally, NSDR only takes 10 minutes and it protects you from burnout. So although you may seem highly motivated, you're accomplishing tasks, you're doing well. Why did you give up 3 years down the road? All you had to do was apply the brake pedal for 10 minutes a day is what the science is saying. But meditation doesn't apply the brake pedal. Okay. Meditation actually spends dopamine and adrenaline and acetylcholine. And the name of the game to avoid burnout and stay on your path is to store dopamine, adrenaline, and acetylcholine. 10 minutes a day. It's like you don't have to...
Of what? 10 minutes a day of what?
Yeah. So NSDR is designed to shut off a part of your brain called DPO, duration, path, outcome. The moment you're conscious to the moment you fall asleep, you are in DPO mode, and it's metabolically expensive, and it's constantly spending dopamine.
Okay.
We all have a pool of dopamine in our brain and body, and it dictates your motivation, energy, and drive.
Okay.
So when you hit the vape, you're lowering the pool for that instant motivation. No. It may not seem like a problem in the short term, but you're walking around life with an anchor. Because like I said, the higher you keep this pool, the more general desire or willingness you have to do all things, the more excited you are to build something for yourself, the better healthy, boring, and mundane tasks actually feel.
Okay.
So serotonin helps protect this system and keep it full.
Okay.
And it's like this thing, you don't even have to do it for very long, like I said, 10 minutes. And so the NSDR script is designed to shut down that DPO system. And the way it does that is it gets you into a body scan, and it stops you from thinking into the future. It stops you from planning. And so duration, path, outcome. The script is designed to get you out of that. Yeah.
Cool. So you're not thinking about what you're going to be doing all day, because that is just you moving, right? You're activating things in your brain, or what? So you got serotonin, adrenaline. What does the adrenaline do that's different than the dopamine and serotonin? And don't you want to expend that kind of stuff? Because I feel like if I had a bunch of dopamine that was waiting to be released in my brain, I would like to release it.
So it's all about timing it.
Okay.
I'm a neurochemical.
So you're allowed to release the dopamine just in the right way.
Yes.
Okay.
It's about being a chemical sniper. Adrenaline is the molecule that allows you to evolve. The reason why you can remember so much about a traumatic experience is because the level of adrenaline in your brain and body from that experience. So there's ways to mimic trauma with protocols, adrenaline protocols, AKA activation protocols.
Okay.
Now, media, news, why is it emotionally charged? Adrenaline response. Whatever happened prior, 90 minutes prior to that adrenaline response, you remember with great affinity.
Wow.
The biggest lie in the universe is that every experience we have changes us. Only very positive and very negative experiences change the brain after the age of 25, plus or minus a year. Think about that.
Wow. And that's what you were kind of saying, why it's difficult for our parents to learn how to use a smartphone. Is that related to that, or what is that? Because you were saying how when they get older, is it the neuroplasticity?
Yeah, so what happens is the trillions of neurons that make up your thoughts, behaviors, skills, and trauma get cemented together by these things called glial cells. And you need a lot of chemicals in the brain and body to reorganize these neurons.
How long did it take you to learn all of this?
As I was picking up bits and pieces of this, I just knew it was so important.
Wow.
And I think the impulsivity within me is actually a superpower, because I was like, I know there's all these other things in life, but I'm going to dig deep on this.
Yeah, this is your thing. And you've had a successful recovery since you've started?
Yeah.
Yeah, how long has it been?
5 years.
Wow. A person who couldn't get over a year.
Yeah, I'm 29 now, almost 30.
Wow.
And not only that, it's like this beautiful thing. It's this beautiful thing of being forced to dig deep into something that makes me an extremely high performer in the eyes of not my lens. And it's not that I'm great. It's like I took the best. I got lucky. I found the best information coming from Stanford. Andrew Huberman. Check out Huberman Lab podcast 1 through 10. Those episodes saved my life.
Wow.
I got lucky, and we have this entire world of people kind of parroting information and these ideas and concepts like trauma, inner child, meditation, things like this. They're kind of just randomly throwing out protocols. And what makes me different is I've done the work to learn a little bit of biology, so now I can accurately put a protocol in its place to get a real effect. So I know within the first 2 hours of waking that my adrenaline levels are lowest. So I'm not going to learn anything right then. My thinking's going to be garbage. So what do?
What do you do?
I work out in the first 2 hours of my day.
Okay.
Why? Because movement releases adrenaline.
Awesome.
You need adrenaline for change. So you're not going to change you're not going to change if you feel sleepy, calm, relaxed. You have to have this level of alertness to you. So you asked, why are we out here looking at the sun? First of all, you don't look directly at the sun. The morning sunlight viewing is anchoring your adrenaline so that consistently you know each time per day that's going to be the best window to change. Because if you're an addict like me, I had to change fast because I had a lot of time to make up for.
Right. And a lot to lose if you didn't change.
Not only that, I damaged myself quite a bit.
Yeah.
So my top priority on a daily basis became open up this thing called neuroplasticity, which chisels away at those cemented neurons and allows me to accelerate my learning at a significantly faster than if I was just waking up and reading something.
Right. And this could work for everybody and all different things, but when you form an addiction, you form pathways in your brain, especially as a young person. If you start using for me at 13 and you're doing that until you're 20, you have just like cemented these pathways in your brain that make you keep doing things the same way. In order to think differently, you would have to break those chains, right? Is that kind of how it works, or?
Yeah, so the name of the game when working with families is like, we have to stop the damage. We have to stop the damage. Every time we're putting these chemicals in our body, we're strengthening that circuitry. We're disrupting other circuits. We're causing the nervous system, like from stimulants, the nervous system is not designed to be way up here all the time. It's causing death to neurons, literally. We cause permanent damage eventually. These dopamine neurons are in a boxing match with substances. And you know what's really interesting? This brings us to a point. ADHD is often misdiagnosed. And I actually have full-blown ADHD.
Okay. I was literally just going to ask you about this, so go on.
This is really fascinating. This is really important. So the brain with ADHD, default mode network doesn't work. Default mode network is what makes you feel okay when nothing is going on. So the brain is supposed to be able to switch from default mode network to tasks. And the chemical that allows that to happen is dopamine.
Okay.
So the ADHD brain has a disconnect. There's no dopamine communicating. So default mode network never gets turned on. So the person with ADHD feels absolutely miserable and they self-medicate by reaching for something that increases dopamine while the whole world around us is saying, wow, these people are dumb, they're idiots, they're just junkies, they're lowlifes. No, this is an actual medical condition, and the problem is it's a slippery slope. So the person reaches for something that increases dopamine.
Like what? Like Adderall? Does Adderall
It starts with
increase
sugar.
dopamine? Okay,
it starts with sugar.
Yeah,
It starts
totally.
with the video game. It starts
Yeah.
with anything that excites these kids.
Right.
People with ADHD are hyper-focused on anything they enjoy.
Right.
So they feel normal when they're doing something they enjoy. So when they get to these substances, they believe it's the magic elixir.
Right.
What's fascinating is catching ADHD early is a great thing because it gives you a chance to heal these connections between these two brain regions, and eventually these people can feel okay when nothing's going on at all. So actually, ADHD medication with a really skilled psychiatrist at a young age is the best path.
Really?
And I think a little bit of education is needed as well to communicate to these kids like, oh, there's just something going on. And when you're doing something you enjoy, it's making your brain work really well. But the key is monitor your intensity. Because when these kids start exploring and they're realizing that this dopamine is making them feel normal, they get this intensity that goes up. the intensity goes up. That pool of dopamine gets lower, and intensity goes higher. And that's what's leading to this slippery slope.
Wow. So interesting. So you don't take any medications, right? And you feel fine when you have nothing stimulating you. You can sit in a room by yourself and you feel content and happy. And that starts with your schedule that you have. So back to your morning, the first thing you do is anchor. That's what you said, right? With sunlight.
Yeah.
And then you exercise.
Right.
Which allows you to increase your adrenaline. See, am I getting this? Okay. Increase your adrenaline so that you can learn better. Do you learn the 90 minutes after the adrenaline, or you said before?
Yeah. So my learning session starts about 2 hours after waking. That's when your adrenaline's going to be highest, and the movement's going to really prime that and increase the odds of it being at a nice level. And we focus in these windows of time known as ultradian windows. So acetylcholine is the molecule of focus, and focus lasts 90 minutes.
Okay.
Acetylcholine is really important. Focus is a key component to change, obviously. So now you're starting to pay attention to this idea that these neurochemicals are important to have stocked up because we need to utilize them. If we spent all of our acetylcholine / focus looking at our phone, that's called wasted plasticity. And we don't have very many opportunities to change each day. And if people with addiction and the entire general public, to be honest, I mean, the entire world is in danger right now. And change is the only thing that increases the probability of you becoming valuable enough to make a living during times where not many people are going to be able to.
Yes.
And that's happening as we speak.
I agree. It is getting harder and harder to be successful. And soon I think it'll be, the strongest are gonna have to survive, because it is just getting very difficult for people out there right now. And if they're really not when I deal with people who obviously they'll come down to Florida seeking a better life, to Palm Beach County in particular, and they'll get stranded, right? And so now they have nothing. They're outside, they've lost their ID, they have no credit card, they have no money, but they're like, Allie, I'm just gonna get a job and make it happen here. I go, you need to really consider that. Because if you're in this situation, that means that you have improper planning to begin with. And you need to be on top of your game if you're going to make it here, where rent is $2,500 a month, food is $1,000 a month. My auto insurance just went up $100 a month to $360, and I haven't gotten a ticket in God knows how long.
Right.
So it's just tough to survive. So you're right. We'd have to be at optimal performance.
People don't realize that the top CEOs, top athletes, they get to a point where scientists hit them up, and then they have an entire team of scientists working with them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think we should touch on this really quickly. There's something that is going to cause a lot of harm to the general public. It's something called dopamine layering. Dopamine layering is whenever something difficult is taking place. And why I'm putting this in now is because the workout in the morning is difficult.
Right. And how long do you typically work out for in the morning?
I think 60 minutes is a safe amount of time.
Okay.
That way we're not getting any negative effects, because you can actually overdo it.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. So this workout in the morning, it's very important that I'm not using energy drinks or pre-workouts, things like that.
Coffee. Can you have coffee?
Coffee's cool.
Okay.
So
Coffee's cool.
That's a good point. That brings us to an important point. There's a huge difference between multi-ingredient energy drinks, synthetic caffeine, pre-workouts, and natural sources of caffeine like coffee and tea.
Okay.
Huge difference. Coffee and tea don't release a tremendous amount of dopamine. What they do is they actually increase your ability to feel dopamine.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's a bunch of neurons around your body, and they get deactivated and turned off. So just because you're releasing dopamine from your brain, you can't feel it because the neurons are off. Coffee and tea actually turn them on without releasing it. But multi-ingredient energy drinks, synthetic forms of caffeine, pre-workouts, they release a ton of this dopamine, and the caffeine is synthetic, which has a much different effect in our body. and it's turning on the dopamine receptors as well. So a key concept here is intensity.
You keep saying that. Okay.
How can we get back to this life where we enjoy 90% of life versus like these intense experiences which takes away 80% of joy? That's what the corporations are doing. They're leveraging intensity and they're sprinkling it in, and that's called dopamine layering. So we're at this workout, hours 1 and 2. I train my dopamine circuitry so that I never give up and I stay resilient and very strong by not allowing anything to raise my dopamine during difficult tasks very often.
And what do you mean by that?
Yes.
And what's a difficult task for you? Like, what do you mean by
anything that requires effort that I want to maintain my entire life?
like physical effort or like mental effort or any kind of effort?
Anything that requires a long amount of focus, that is something that you want to maintain for the rest of your life. More often than not, you shouldn't need anything to get through that window of time. And now we live in a society where it's like, oh, I need the frappa drink. I need the vape now. Did I play my video game? Did I check my message on social media? There's all these ways to sneak a dopamine
Right.
hit. And
So while you're doing that, you're not doing any of those other things.
I'm not a saint. I do dopaminergic experiences in the later part of my day. Like I'll engage with dopamine in phase 2, but phase 1, I'm very careful. Phase 1 is hours 1 through 9 or like 1 through 7, 1 through 5. If you can get through the first phase of your day without depending on anything and just getting through the difficult things, what you're going to do is keep this part of your circuitry activated, because this is the prefrontal cortex. When you think, you should be getting a dopamine release, which gives you motivation, drive, energy, a desire to build. And it gets turned off. And this is happening to everybody.
Wow.
Why did the person that went to college and got a good career, why is that person now overweight, can't seem to get to the gym, fast food, no ability to decide for self, and mimicking addictive behavior for the chronic addict at a younger age? Acute addiction, work hard, play hard, and lack of dopamine biology equals chronic addiction. They just hit you at different periods of your life.
Right.
And so one's invisible and one society thinks is normal. So it's like totally cool. You laugh it off like, yeah, I stopped going to the gym. I gained 40 pounds. Ha, 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 that happened to me too.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like normalized.
Accepted. Totally. 100%.
But the addict, oh, that loser should have made better choices in life. And wow, stay away from those people. You don't want to be like those people.
Right. But no one says that when you form some sort of chronic illness for being unhealthy for 30 years.
Yeah.
So the first part of your day,
Yeah.
the first quarter, you said that could be 5 to 9 hours.
As long as you're
Do
getting...
any of those hours include sleep? No.
So the morning light viewing,
Okay.
that morning light viewing is making sure everything stays in a schedule.
Okay.
There are cells on your eyes that need to detect low solar angles. These are called retinal ganglion cells. It doesn't work through windows or sunglasses. So you think you're getting in your car, you got sunshine coming through the windows. You're like, oh, I get my morning light. No. There's actually
go outside.
Yeah, there's actually something in the material of the glass that stops this effect. So these cells cannot detect the photons. So you need 100,000 lux worth of light before 9 a.m. because something called the circadian dead zone occurs. When the sun gets too high in the sky, you lose the blue and yellow contrast. The atmosphere color changes.
Cool.
The cells on your eyes need blue and yellow light, and they sense a certain amount of this. They communicate that signal to a brain region called suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is above the roof of your mouth. It's also known as the master clock, and this is really important. This is so important.
Say the word one more time, though. What was it?
Suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Yes.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Okay, so this thing on the roof of your mouth, right?
Yes. Master clock pulses to the trillions of cells, tissues, and organs of your body, starts a beautiful chemical cascade where the synthesis, the production, and the release of neurochemicals, it's all relying on this signal, and this signal anchors that entire system.
Wow. And you made that sound so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
That was like so nice to kind of visualize, like just this thing, like your body's kind of all working together, right? And you have lots of little things going on in there.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay. So that's what the sunlight's so important, before 9, outside.
10 minutes, 20 minutes if very cloudy.
Okay. I love this. Okay.
No windows, no sunglasses.
Got
Prescription lenses and contacts are fine.
Don't look directly at the sun.
Don't look directly at the sun, you
pull a
sun
Trump
gazers.
when it was,
You yoginistas. Does not mean look directly at the sun and burn your retinas out. There's photons everywhere. Even if you're underneath shade, underneath a gazebo, as long as there's no windows, you're going to get those photons.
And then the next part is the hour-ish workout. Is there a specific kind of workout? Should it be cardio? Can it be weight training? Does it matter?
Great question. As far as high performance, we need a balance. And I keep it super simple. I'm not trying to gain a bunch of big muscles or run marathons. I just look for the protocols that are going to make me perform at my highest level and give me the most energy.
Okay.
So we need something called zone 2, zone 3, zone 5, and resistance training.
Okay.
Super simple. I just make sure I cross those off throughout the week.
What are examples of those zones?
Yeah. Zone 2 is conversational pace cardio. So it's the amount of cardio, the amount of effort doesn't ever get you to this point where you can't maintain a conversation. Like,
okay. Right.
I can't.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So, okay, cool. All right. So that.
You know you're out of zone 2 when you can no longer maintain a conversation.
Okay.
Now we've entered zone 3. Zone 2, you get a lot of, you're in zone 2 when you're talking on the phone, walking around. So start walking while you're having phone calls.
Okay.
Boom. We need 150 minutes per week of zone 2, according to Stanford cardiologists.
Bam.
Zone 3, it's a little bit more tricky. I do 30 minutes of zone 3, 1 time per week interval. And it's a pace that you can maintain 4 to 12 minutes, and it should be difficult to maintain that pace for 4 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little bit faster than that zone 2. When you get to that time that you've set for yourself, whether it's 6 minutes, it should be like, this 6 minutes was hard. Then we're going to deactivate by just pausing, maybe doing some deactivation protocols. You can look into my work to learn more about what deactivation/serotonin means and how you can reset the nervous system very quickly. Intervals, 30 minutes total. So you'll do 6 minutes, 2 minutes off. 6 minutes, 2 minutes off. Just set a timer for 30 minutes. Doesn't have to be perfect. Boom, we got our zone 3 in.
Awesome.
Zone 5 is a whole different beast.
Oh.
And I like...
You like zone 5?
This is where the sniper in me makes zone 5 a little bit more effective.
Okay.
Because zone 5 equals adrenaline up.
Oh.
Right? You run next to a bear cub, or you walk next to a bear cub, you're sprinting away from that bear cub.
Right.
Adrenaline up. You remember everything that happened 90 minutes prior. So this is where the timing of my workout changes a little bit. I'll do resistance training, 90 minutes of learning, because that's how long an ultradian window is, and that's how long that acetylcholine/focus molecule lasts. Boom, acetylcholine empty from focus on adaptive material. Zone 5 starts immediately. You have 15 minutes to raise adrenaline after learning.
Wow.
To get the additional effect. And this effect is massive. There's something called one trial learning, and there's something called repetition learning. It takes 100 to 1,000 repetitions to learn something without neurochemicals, and you can potentially learn it really well.
Wow.
In one shot if you understand adrenaline timing.
Wow.
That's how I've made such a leaps and bounds in a short amount. I'm a homeless junkie, guys. You know?
I love it.
I put some work in.
Right.
You know?
Well.
Chemical timing, sniping.
So cool. Awesome. So that's the first part of your day.
Yeah. Phase 1, repeat until I get to the point where it's hard to maintain focus. And obviously we have lives and we have things going on. I sacrifice, meaning for a long time I served tables at night so that I could have these learning sessions during the day.
Wow.
everyone's trying to fit that 9 to 5 and make it seem like their life is normal. It's like, you got to figure out, there's this thing called, the CIA teaches their agents something called self-actualization. We all have this hierarchy of needs, basic physiological, safety and security, the white picket fence, the house, the car, the job, the salary, the community. And then at the very top of the pyramid is something called self-actualization. The general public is doing this completely backwards. They fill up their pyramid from bottom to top. They have the perfect life, and then they start working on reaching their full potential. And what the CIA teaches their agents is that you can start reaching your full potential even when you don't live in a nice area. And in fact, you'll get to your full potential quicker when you're agitated. So there's a reason why a lot of these billionaires are coming from immigrant families. Life was extremely difficult. Comfort, abundance, dopamine layering, deactivating frontal cortex circuitry. This is why I get hired on by corporations and I work with really high net worth individuals. Abundance is deactivating your ability to generate motivation from thinking. So it's just very important for the entire world, but a lot of people don't care about this information for some reason, I've noticed. It is so important to do difficult things without increasing dopamine.
Right.
It keeps, and it's not like you got to do it all day. It's just these first couple hours.
Sure, because you said throughout your day you do dopamine. I mean, is TikTok considered dopamine?
Yeah, anything you enjoy, unfortunately.
Anything you enjoy.
So the name of the game is just
food?
Yeah, that's why intermittent fasting is so important. Intermittent fasting is really good for people who are trying to change their behavior or heal their dopamine system because you don't give in to your impulse. Anytime you're saying no to your impulse,
it's good.
I want to eat my breakfast. Well, your desire to eat your breakfast is enhanced if you're eating carbohydrates in the morning. Carbohydrates increase blood sugar and stop your liver's ability to produce glucose, and it increases ghrelin response. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So if blood sugar is spiking often throughout the day, you're having way more hunger hormone. Your total calories at the end of the day is way higher than it should be. That's why intermittent fasting is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Because we're lowering the amount of time that blood sugar is high, which means we're automatically going to start over a 2-week period of time. The ghrelin response, AKA hunger hormone, is lowering. And a lot of people are overweight when they're trying to get their life back together. So, and remember, we're training this dopamine circuitry. We want to eat the breakfast. We say no. Boom. We just did something difficult. We waited. We made it through that amount of time. We're retraining that dopamine circuitry. And you're using knowledge. You're saying, oh, the fasting is helping me with adrenaline. It's creating adrenaline. Oh, which means I'm going to learn better. I'm going to be more agitated. I'm going to be moving forward. I'm going to be having more of a desire to move, more of a desire to take action. That's why a little bit of science is so important.
Right.
Knowledge is power. And so when we're going through these difficult tasks, what do? We start telling ourselves the science, and then we get a dopamine release, and we're kind of kickstarting that prefrontal cortex again, which got deactivated from the dopamine layering.
This biology is so important too, right? Like, I mean, our bodies are very complex. And if the moon can just change tides in the ocean and all of us are connected, it's probably really important for us to know how our body works, how our brains work, and how to optimize ourselves through food, through the things that we do and say and think, and the way that we act. Now, you're going to have to come back on for a part 2. You know that? Like, because we're going to have to break it down a little further. But I wanted to ask you, so once you started you got all this information together, right? And you wrote an ebook to help people.
Yeah.
What has the response been like? What kind of success have you seen by bringing people? Because do you help them one-on-one, bring them through this process, or what is that? And what have you seen as a result of people going through it?
Yeah, hundreds of people have reached out to me that have no resources, and clearly I can't give my time to everyone, and I've had to set boundaries with myself because I feel like I've been one to kind of sacrifice myself. But it's very amazing. People have reached out to me, and I invented something called DRT, dopamine replacement therapy, which takes away cravings and irritability during the withdrawal phase of any maladaptive thing.
And it's not a replacement for detox, correct?
So yeah, in my guide, it says you need to work with a self-help, in my guide, it says you need to work with an MD. And so it's not like something that is replacing the current system. It's just giving people an understanding of what's going on in the dopamine system and a strategy to make the process more effective. Versus
those
like
cravings.
Oh yeah, I'm going to quit Tuesday, and then they don't quit. Why are they not quitting?
Right.
Because they didn't replace dopamine. It's almost impossible to beat. That's why mothers are using substances in front of their children. It's almost impossible not to use until like life really falls apart.
Totally.
So,
and those cravings don't go away even when your physical detox may be over. You might be off of opiates or alcohol or whatever it is. Physically, you're okay, but mentally, you're still really struggling to not pick up again.
That's why getting this young is really important, because we can cause permanent damage to these dopamine neurons. And it takes 30 days in some cases to fill the dopamine pool back up to where you enjoy the little. You hear the common terminology, oh, I started enjoying the little things. That just means, oh, your dopamine pool is full.
Wow.
That's why I try to protect that thing at all costs. I want to enjoy 90% of life.
Right.
So how do we replace dopamine with something healthy? And it has to require effort. It has to be hard. There's not many things that raise dopamine in a healthy way. And the other issue is there's not many things that raise dopamine in a guaranteed way. So a non-negotiable physiological response is deliberate cold exposure. Cold water is guaranteed to raise dopamine as high as cocaine.
Wow.
And it's not like it rises and crashes. What's interesting about cold water is it elevates dopamine 250% above baseline as high as cocaine, and then it stays high for 5 hours, allowing your dopamine neurons to start packaging dopamine back up and putting it back in, and packaging it up and putting it back in. So we got as high as the yayo.
But we didn't lose all of our dopamine.
We feel great for 5 hours.
Wow.
We don't have that crash response, which is initiating the craving, the phenomenon of craving. I need more.
Totally.
That's called dopamine kinetics. It has everything to do with the fall of dopamine. So it didn't fall. It just gracefully lowered over time.
Wow.
All of the people I've worked with, I have 100% success rate. I haven't failed. People that actually do this, like work one-on-one with me, work with an MD,
That's
work with specialists.
That's a shocking success rate, but they're doing all the things that you're requiring of them.
There's a lot of people who looked at the information who said, no, I can't do that. So
Yeah.
there's a level of willingness and resilience
Totally.
that's required for this.
Totally. Yeah. That's
And
super
faith.
cool.
You need faith too.
Yeah.
So if you went 5 hours, no cravings, no withdrawal symptoms, or they're very minimal, at least tolerable. And the person starts to feel like, oh, wow. Like they get out of that cold water, they're like, wait, what? I feel normal again, but I didn't do the thing.
Right.
So 5 hours passes and they're starting to, the feelings coming back, the agitation, I need it. I need the dopamine.
What do they
you
do
remind
then?
them, there's still ice in your bath, buddy. Round 2.
Right.
Ready,
Wow.
fight. Some people can make it through the first day without needing the ice bath. Here's the other problem. Once you become cold water adapted, you no longer release dopamine anymore. So you got to kill all birds with one stone. That's the strategy here. So a lot of people try to go from more dangerous substances to less dangerous substances.
Sure.
Like, oh, I'm just going to quit the heroin, but I'm going to keep smoking weed. Well, the weed keeps the phenomenon of craving alive, so eventually...
And it also keeps them alive, just saying. I'm just saying. But yeah. I'm a big harm reduction person. But yes, I hear you. Go ahead.
Right.
But it doesn't fix them. It's not going to make them a high
that's
performer.
where this gets tricky. Yeah.
It's going to long-term not be the best still.
It's
right?
tricky. It's tricky because anything that lowers the dopamine pool will keep phenomenon of craving on over time, which will eventually lead back to a seeking pattern.
Right.
So we have to take away all things that make it so life can't compete. So life itself cannot compete with the level of dopamine coming from cannabis, from ADHD medications in many cases, from all these substances.
Right.
So it comes back to this word intensity.
Yeah.
How do we take away the intensity? So that's always been my strategy is remove all of the intensity, and I know that I'm falling off when intensity comes back in my life. When I start smoking again, that has been, you know,
It's one of your red flags when that
failure
starts
happens
happening.
quickly after that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, one of my ex-boyfriends, I could always tell when he was about to relapse because he would start gambling. You know, and so that would always be the first stop for him, would be some sort of casino or even sports betting or whatever it was. But shortly after that, and it's probably because of what you're saying, it would release this dopamine and phenomenon of craving and whatever it is. It was just the next thing to do.
Why is NSTR a non-negotiable daily dopamine protection protocol? It is the only thing shown in human studies to fill your dopamine pool besides quality sleep. It's not meditation. Remember, I said it shuts off DPO analysis. The script is specifically designed to be able to do that. It's on a daily basis. Think of it like filling your gas tank and never allowing it to get too empty. A normal brain can get to empty dopamine and they're just going to feel depressed. The addict brain, if it gets to low dopamine for too long, it initiates that survival response. Like,
right. Wow. And you said a good night's sleep. What is that to you?
Good night's sleep. A good night's sleep to me occurs from a healthy melatonin and cortisol pulse, which is anchored by the morning light and evening light protocols. So melatonin is the feeling of sleepiness, but melatonin doesn't keep us asleep. It's that pulse that occurs that's like, oh, I'm getting tired. Well, guess what suppresses that is light, and just a really small amount of light.
No, I've noticed. Since you told me that, I've walked on my patio or my balcony every morning, and even if it's not for the full 15 minutes, the moment I look at the sunlight, I feel immediately more awake and like ready to not go back to bed.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
So this is the night light protocol. No light for me on a daily basis. I follow the protocol of no light after 10, especially 11 p.m.
And that includes like TV light or?
Yeah, a small amount of light.
I guess that's around me.
Well, there actually this is really, really important to talk about actually. Remember how I talked about there's dopamine neurons throughout the whole brain and body? Uh-huh. So we release it and then we feel it because there's dopamine neurons that are activated. Light after 11 p.m. shuts these off for 3 days. So you might be doing great, but you've had a pattern of like staying up late.
Right.
Why? There's a huge suicide increase for shift workers, a huge mental health increase for shift workers. Wow. So not only are we disrupting sleep, which is the thing that's filling the dopamine neurons most effectively, we're also turning off dopamine neurons throughout the brain and body for 72 hours from viewing light after 10 p.m., especially 11 p.m. So this is the name of the game here is there's lots of little ways that this dopamine system is being attacked. Mm-hmm. And if we just shield it off, if we can find a way to shield 70% of these attacks, we have an optimized dopamine system. And remember, this is the molecule that keeps you on a path your entire life without ever giving up. If you've ever given up on anything, that is a symptom of you not protecting your dopamine circuitry. And what's interesting is there's a phrase in science, it takes science time to catch up. We're at that time. But only urgency gets you focused when really bad problems in your life. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully I can create that urgency in this explanation. We can develop some importance. We can make it so simple.
Right.
How hard is it to view light before 9 a.m.?
Right.
How hard is it to deactivate for 10 minutes doing NSDR? It's the only thing shown in human studies to fill these dopamine neurons.
Wow.
And when your chemicals are healthy, you have a melatonin pulse hitting you every night at 10 p.m., especially 11 p.m. You fall asleep, you sleep like a baby, you feel amazing, and you start performing well, and 90% of life feels great after 30 days. How do we make it to that 30-day mark?
Right.
That's hard for all people.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to come back on and tell us so much more about this because I bet people are going to have a lot of questions in the comments below, and I can't wait to hear your responses to them. Where can everyone find you? Because you have a ton of amazing content on your TikTok. And is that your main outlet or?
Yeah, I'm trying to build up X because I believe that Elon Musk will turn X into something pretty fascinating. I've had some success on TikTok.
Cool.
The hot nerds are in. Just kidding. But that's why some of the comments have said hot nerds are
look
in.
at you. And that's at Neuro Will. Is that where everyone can find you?
NEURO_Will.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming to hang out with us today.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't bore you guys with science.
I think that was far from boring. I think that was one of the coolest episodes we've done so far. Do you want to thank everybody?
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your interest in science. I'm alive because of scientists, and I am just here to try to spread the message. So
I love how he always goes, thanks, everybody, for caring about science. Well, thank you so much for coming down here and taking your time on a Saturday. And it's so beautiful out. So I really appreciate it. And I love you guys so much. I hope you loved this episode. If you have any questions, comment them down below. And if no one told you they love you today, I do. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.